Auntie!
Auntie, what's going on?
Jimmy, sit still. Keep quiet.
It wasn't the plague that scared me most. It was the silence after it. I was 9 years old when the sickness began. I'm 37 now, and Britain is still sick. People used to say the world ended fast. That's not true. It ended slowly, like a body bleeding out. The news called it the red fever. We called it the breath stealer. It didn't kill everyone, only most of us. Those it didn't kill became something else. It started with the cough. Always the cough. I remember my mother's voice that morning. Stay inside, Tom. Don't go near the windows. She was pale, sweating, her lips cracked. The small coal fire in our living room made the air feel too hot. She kept looking at the door like she expected someone or something to break it down. We lived in Ashwick, a gray, crumbling town where even before the fever, most shops had closed. After the fever, the streets looked like they belonged to ghosts, cars, rusted where they'd stopped. Curtains never moved. My father was already gone by then. He'd gone out for food 3 weeks earlier and never came back. The only sound that day was the wind scraping dead leaves along the pavement and the faint, slow footsteps outside our door. They weren't in a hurry. I peeked through the curtain. 3 men, or what used to be men, stood in the middle of the road. Their skin was blistered and red, their eyes swollen. One of them had no lips, just teeth and a grin that never shut. They didn't walk like people. They tilted forward, jerky, sniffing the air like dogs. I thought they might smell the soup we'd been boiling. Mom didn't see me looking, but she knew. She always knew. They can't see well, she whispered, but they can hear and smell. Don't make a sound. That night she told me something she'd never said before. If I don't wake up tomorrow, you go north. You keep to the smaller roads. Don't talk to anyone. I didn't sleep. The wind kept rattling the tin roof of the shed, and the smell of smoke drifted in from somewhere far off. By morning, her fever had worsened. She was barely breathing. I packed a bag, 2 bottles of water, 3 cans of food, a knife from the kitchen, and my father's old coat. I left a note on the table. I'll come back with a doctor. The street was empty when I stepped out. Ashwick looked frozen in time, except for the red handprint smeared across our front door. I didn't know then what that meant. Not yet. Asterisk, the red on our door was not paint. It was sticky when I brushed my fingers over it, and it smelled faintly of iron. My stomach turned, but I didn't wipe it off. I didn't want to know whose hand it was. The northern road out of Ashwick was cracked. Weeds pushing up through the tarmac. Houses leaned in on either side like they were listening. I kept my head down and walked. After a mile, I passed the old petrol station. The sign was hanging by one chain, creaking. The forecourt was littered with bottles and clothes, and something worse. A man was sitting against the wall, knees up, head bent. His shirt was stuck to him with dry blood. At first, I thought he was dead. Then his head snapped up. His eyes were yellow. I froze. He didn't get up. He just watched me, his chest rising and falling in short, sharp gasps. I could hear his teeth clicking together, like he was chewing nothing. I stepped back. My boot crunched on glass. The sound echoed too loud. He hissed, not like a snake, but like someone drawing air through broken teeth, and then began to crawl toward me, his hands leaving wet marks on the concrete. I ran, the sound of him scraping after me followed for a few seconds, then stopped. I didn't look back. By noon, the sun was high, but the air felt cold. I reached the edge of the next town, Larksbridge. I'd been here with Dad once, before the fever, to get spare parts for the old motorbike. It looked different now. The shop windows were smashed. A church bell was ringing somewhere, slow and uneven, like someone was pulling the rope without rhythm. I followed the sound. halfway down the high street. I saw them, 5 figures, standing in a loose circle around the church steps. They weren't moving. Their heads were tilted back, staring at the sky. One of them, a woman in a torn dress, raised her arms slowly, like she was welcoming something above. Her mouth opened wide. The sound that came out wasn't words. It was a long, hollow wail that made my knees feel weak. The others joined in, their voices blending into something that didn't sound human. I backed away, careful not to step on anything. Then I saw it, another red handprint, this time smeared across the door of the church. It was fresher than the one on my house. I kept walking backward until the church was out of sight. The wailing didn't stop. It followed me down the empty street like a thin thread pulled tight. When I turned the corner, I almost tripped over a small tin bucket. Inside was a brush. Dripping with something thick and dark red. The smell told me it wasn't paint. The houses here weren't random. Every single one had the same handprint, pressed at shoulder height, fingers spread wide. Some had streaks below, like whoever made them had been dragged away before they finished. I didn't know why, but I knew enough to stay away. From marked doors, a clatter made me spin around. A boy, maybe a little younger than me, was standing in the doorway of a shop. His hair was tangled, his clothes torn. He had a cricket bat in one hand. The way he stared at me made me think he hadn't seen another person in a long time. "You're walking through marked streets," he said. His voice was hoarse, like he hadn't spoken much lately. "What does it mean?" I asked. He pointed at the nearest handprint. "They come back for these. The ones inside are ready." Ready for what? He didn't answer. He just walked back inside the shop, pulling. The door shut down. I kept moving. My mind kept circling his words. "They come back for these." By the time I reached the far end of Lark's Bridge, the wailing had stopped. The silence that followed was worse. The road narrowed into a lane, overgrown with brambles. I was halfway down it when I heard footsteps behind me, soft, deliberate. I didn't turn around right away. I wanted to be sure. They matched my pace. When I slowed, they slowed. I glanced back. 2 men were following, not infected, not yet, but their skin was mottled, and their eyes were too bright. Each of them held a short length of pipe. They weren't rushing. They didn't have to. The lane felt narrower with every step. The hedges on both sides were high enough to block any escape. The only way was forward or back toward them. Their boots scuffed on the road behind me. Slow, steady. They wanted me to hear it. I gripped the kitchen knife in my coat pocket. My father's coat was too big, and the sleeve swallowed my hands. But I kept the blade ready. When I reached a bend in the lane, I tried to speed up. That's when one of them spoke. "No need to run, boy. We're not sick." I didn't answer. "You been through Lark's Bridge?" the other asked. His voice was lower, rougher. "See the marks?" I kept walking. "Those marks mean there's something worth taking. Food, water, people, the first." One laughed. "We collect for the ones who keep us safe. You understand." I did understand, enough to know I didn't want to be collected. I broke into a run. The sound of boots behind me doubled. They were faster than they looked. The lane twisted, and I saw an opening in the hedge, a gap just wide enough for me to squeeze through. I dove into it, thorns tearing at my coat. My bag caught, and I had to wrench it free. Ripping one strap, I burst out into a small field. The grass wet underfoot. Ahead, an old farmhouse leaned to one side, roof sagging. I sprinted toward it. The front door was already open. I didn't like that, but I liked the idea of staying out in the open, even less inside. The air was damp and smelled faintly of rot. I moved through the front room, keeping low. That's when I saw the wall. Every inch of it was covered in handprints. Not just red, brown, black, some faded to a sickly orange. Hundreds of them, layered over each other. In the middle was something else. A single word, painted in thick, clotted lines. Offering. I backed away from the wall. but the smell in the room was stronger now. Copper and something sour. Like milk left out in the sun. From upstairs came a sound. Not footsteps, not exactly. More like a slow drag. Then a thump, drag, thump. The hunter's voices floated in from outside. "He's in there." I froze. "Check upstairs first," one of them said. The dragging sound stopped. Then a whisper, not words I could understand. Just breath pushed through teeth. I turned toward the kitchen. There was a back door. But before I reached it, something moved in the doorway. Tall, thin, skin stretched tight over bone. Its head tilted too far to one side, like it was listening. The eyes, there weren't any, just skin. Smooth where they should have been. It stepped forward, sniffing the air. The smell was stronger now because it was smelling me. I didn't think. I slammed the knife into its side. It made no sound, just staggered, then kept coming. The back door was swollen in its frame, but I threw my shoulder into it and burst out into the yard. Behind me, the hunters shouted. The blind thing's dragging steps were faster now. I ran through the tall grass, not caring about the noise I made. The field sloped down toward a line of trees. When I reached them, I stopped, because in the clearing ahead, I saw them. Dozens of people standing in a loose circle. Some were healthy, some infected. All of them had a red handprint smeared across their faces. A man in a heavy coat stood in the center. When he saw me, he smiled. "Another offering," he said. The man in the heavy coat didn't move toward me. He didn't have to. The circle of people turned their heads in unison, like they were connected by strings. The infected among them twitched and shuddered, but they didn't attack. The man gestured to the hunters, who came out of the trees behind me. "Bring him in," he said. I tried to run, but one caught my arm. The other twisted the knife out of my hand. They pushed me forward into the circle, up close. I saw what the red handprints on their faces really were. Not just blood, layers of it. Dried and cracked, smeared over and over. It stank. The man in the coat spoke softly, almost kindly. "The fever took most of us. Those that left, we served the blind." I thought of the eyeless thing in the farmhouse. "They can't find food themselves," he went on. "So we feed them. We mark the houses. We bring them what's inside. Sometimes, if the food runs out." He didn't have to finish. From the far side of the clearing came the dragging sound. Several blind emerged from the trees, their heads turning toward us. They sniffed the air, their movements quickening. The people in the circle began to hum, low, vibrating in my chest. It was the same kind of sound I'd heard at the church, but deeper. One of the hunters grabbed me by the shoulders, forcing me down to my knees. "You'll be quick," he whispered, like it was a comfort. The blind were almost on me now. I could smell them, the rot, the damp earth clinging to them. I thought of my mother, still lying in her bed in Ashwick, waiting for me to come back with help. I lunged sideways, wrenching free from the hunter's grip, and ran through the gap between two of the infected. I heard them shriek behind me, high animal sounds. Branches tore at my face as I crashed through the trees. I didn't stop until my lungs burned and my legs felt like they'd snap. When I finally collapsed, I was alone. The woods were silent, but somewhere far off, carried on the wind, I heard the hum starting again.